Hello, friends, and welcome to What the Fringe, the podcast dedicated to all things Fringe theater. I'm your host, Lauren Hance, and each week I visit with a Fringe artist to hear all about their endeavors and gain insight into their process. This week, I'm visiting with Kevin Velasquez, the writer and performer of Letter of Release. Letter of Release is a young man's attempt to understand who he is, specifically his fear and inability to establish intimate relationships, by examining his relationship with his grandmother and father, as well as acknowledging specific traumas. He sets a goal to understand who he is and who he doesn't have to be.
I feel like a lot of pieces for me go back to childhood and maybe unresolved traumas. And whether I'm writing a drama or really even something whimsical, you always see kind of those traumas pop up. They kind of manifest in different ways. And one character can be several pieces of different people that I've interacted with. Letter of Release really initially started because I was writing my father who's in prison. And so we would exchange letters, and it really became a need on my part for some resolution, because that wasn't a relationship that I grew up having. There was just enough to know that he was out there and just enough to kind of feel and want that relationship.
Kevin Velasquez is a director for the Grand Prairie Fine Arts Academy, where he has worked with student performers grades 6 through 12 for the last 10 years. Kevin has been a part of the DFW theater community for the past 17 years and enjoys all things theater, including directing, acting, design, and writing. Kevin, welcome to What the Fringe.
Hi, thank you. I'm excited. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I'm so excited to have you on. I'm really excited because we are both performing at the Fort Worth Fringe, which is happening in September. And it's a little baby Fringe. It's so tiny and I love it. We have 13 shows this year. And I was looking through the lineup for folks to invite on, and I was very intrigued by your show. And then my listeners know I avidly stalk people online, but very good stalking, artistic stalking only, not creepy stalking. And saw that we have a connection through Duncanville because you worked at the Duncanville Community Theater. And then you've also worked under my high school drama teacher, Jerry Ayers, who we lovingly referred to as Sir. But I was like, oh my gosh, I have to have this guy on the program. We have so many connections. Did Jerry ever make you guys call him Sir, or the students?
No, but it's funny because even in my texts or messages to him, I say, hello, sir. Good morning, sir. Thank you, sir. So I think it just comes out.
It's an essence he carries about him.
With the kerchiefs and his blazer, and just, he's wonderful. I love it.
He's the best. I think I was messaging him about the show and I was like, hello, sir. And it's so good. And I mean, I feel like everybody, so many of my listeners and theater people have a special place in our heart for our high school and middle school drama teachers and anybody who like guided us on our journey towards our career, which is exciting to have you on as well because you're a drama teacher. I spent a few years teaching drama. I only have like 4 years under my belt, so not too many students oogle over me. Well, it's fun now. I have students that are like just my friends now. Do you have students that are that?
I do. In fact, one of my very first students teaches at another middle school in our district. So now we're competing against each other, although I root for her. So, that's wild to see them in the profession and work side by side.
Isn't that exciting? I know I have one. It's funny now that we hang out and I'll introduce her and I'll say, this is my friend. I'm like, she's a former student, but she's really just my friend. Because, people that, oh, how did you guys meet? And I'm like, I was her teacher. But I love that. I love keeping those connections with the kiddos and staying connected with my teachers. Like, I mean, I can name all of my high school drama teachers. I had Jerry Ayers, I had Karen Baker, I had Chuck Wilson, and then my middle school drama teacher was Elise Goosey.
Goosey.
Do you know Elise Goosey?
I do. She's involved in Duncanville, and she's directed me a few times, and her son Tyler is off doing cool costuming and touring. And yeah, so. That's
so cool. I love that. But it is, right? Like, do you know your drama teachers? Do you still keep in touch with them, or could you rattle off their names?
I mean, Miss Davis was in charge of one act. I grew up in a little town. There was maybe 3,200 people, so we had just one act. There was no choir, no theater. You did band or you did athletics, and then one act play. But I got involved in the community theater in my little town. And so, Rebecca and Brian and Cindy and all those who kind of took me under their wing, those are my teachers right there. So.
Yep. Those people in those formative years who directed and guided us when we were young and didn't know what to do with all of this art like coming out of us. Like, how do we channel it? And they're like,
yeah, what do we do with him?
It's so good. But I love that. You're just like first name. You're just saying all their names. Are they still involved in the community theater there where you grew up, or have they retired out of it?
A couple have branched off and started their own, and then a few are, still there. Clifton is where I'm from, and it's a really cool little town full of artists, performers, writers, musicians, and it was really cool. But I keep up with everybody on Facebook. I don't get back as often, with schedules and stuff. But yeah, they're still going at it.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool. A little trip down memory lane there. And I do want to preface one act play for my listeners that aren't familiar. In Texas, I think they do it in other states as well. One act play is like this huge thing. I joke a lot, like, the arts kind of gets the shaft in general, like in school compared to athletics and even in Texas, but still in Texas, we go big or we go home. Like the arts is no joke.
Oh yeah. No, it gets super competitive.
Yes. And so one act play is where we get very, very competitive, and you take a play and you cut it down to 40 minutes. And then we have these like unit sets that we're allowed to use, and then set pieces we can bring. And then we compete against each other and go to state. And it's a really big deal in Texas. One act play is a big, big deal.
And I love it. I geek out. You have 7 minutes to build your set, 7 minutes to strike. We've had our show get to 39 minutes, and after 40, you're disqualified. I love it.
It's like Fringe. Like, oh my gosh, you were saying that. I was like, yeah, you have like 10 minutes to move your crap in and 10 minutes to move your crap out. And there's like Fringes. They're like, if you go over that 60-minute mark, they're turning the lights out on you, man. That's so funny. I had never thought about that. It is just exactly like Fringe. And then I've always like when I did speech and debate and we'd pop characters, playing multiple characters. And I went on to college and we didn't really do that kind of thing. And now I do Fringe. And I just saw a ton of shows, a bunch of solo shows in Edinburgh, and people were popping characters like crazy.
That's a whole other skill set that my kids blow me away when they do that. Like that, I would have to take some time with that, but it's a very specific kind of acting sometimes. And so people look at it one way or another, but I love it.
I do too. It's definitely stylized, more stylized, like in the high school kind of world. But in the Fringe world, there's so many solo shows where people play multiple characters, and it's like literally exactly what they were doing. All these little skills that we learned.
Oh yeah. And that's what draws me to Fringe Festivals. And just artists out there just kind of doing their thing and just letting you experience what they do. It's very different. You don't get that really in the community theater level, and you're limited in the education arena. So I love it. I love it.
Well, that's exciting. Let's talk about your artistic journey. So you're an educator. So what kind of spurred you on to become like involved as an educator, and where did your journey take you there from the community theater there in Clifton to becoming an educator at a fine arts school?
Yeah, I love it. This is my 10th year at my school that I'm at right now. Just love it. I think I've always known that I was a teacher, even as a kid, just kind of taking charge, and I love to learn, and I love to share that. But even like school culture, proms and parties and awards and celebrations and all the things, traditions I've always really been into. So I kind of always knew that was what I wanted to do, even though there were times when I thought I was going to be a mortician. But I circled back and ended up, a little theater teacher. But it didn't start that way. My graduation gift from high school was my daughter, Kennedy. So I had to take a little different route, which is totally fine. But actually, I was 25 before I was like, am I going to do this or not? And so I lived in Waco at the time and went to Baylor, got my degree. And then my degree was actually in history, because I do love history and I love literature, English, which really all tie into theater anyway. And so for the first few years of my career, I taught Texas history and I taught 7th grade English. And they knew I was interested in theater. And so they gave me a little seed money to start a club, because my school didn't have a theater class. And so just started it from scratch. And when budget would allow, they would have me teach theater once I got my certification for that. So I was at that school for 7 years, and then I was doing a show in Duncanville. A friend of the executive director came and watched, and she said, well, I have this school, and I've heard good things about you. And I said, well, yeah, thank you. I said, I'm not ready. And so it was about a year before I was like, okay, because you kind of know when you know that it's time to move on. I reached out and said, you don't happen to have a position at that school, do you? And she's like, well, as a matter of fact. And then that was it. And so the school I'm at now is 6 through 12. And for a long time, I was just middle school, and now it's blended. But I just kind of gorged myself. We averaged middle school alone, maybe like 15 shows a year, which is nuts.
What? Have you lost your mind? That's amazing.
The kids are so hungry for it. I'm like, let's do it. And it was the best exhaustion. It never felt like a job. So even last year, even blended, we clocked probably about 20 shows between middle school and high school, now that we've kind of divided it up a little more. In fact, I already have kids joining me, and we have a show that goes up in about 2 weeks at school. So we're already kicking off our season. But that's just the kind of kids we have. So
yeah, I mean, because it's a fine arts academy. It's a specialized school. The kids have to apply. They have to, I'm assuming, they have to be very into it, want to maybe pursue this as a career or something. So you've got very dedicated kiddos. Do they get involved in all aspects of like theatrical production, or is it just mainly acting, or do they get to do set design and light design and assistant direct and that kind of thing?
Yeah, all the things. And really, even in that lineup last year, I think we had 2 student directed productions. My senior directing class did some shows with the 8th graders. So I always look for ways that those grade levels can collaborate. I have some lighting designers that are students that spoil me. I'm like, can you please come, design for the show? And they're so good. But yeah, no, they do everything. The costume department is so amazing at the things that they get. We have some big high school awards in the DFW area, and so we've won a few times.
Nice. Is that in Houston we have the Tommy Tunes? Is that the musical theater one, or is it something?
Yeah, Broadway, Dallas, the Betty Buckley.
Betty Buckley, that's what you guys have there.
We pop up quite a bit, and so it's really cool. I'm really proud of it, and to have those kids from 6 to 12, just the relationships that you build with them. And some go on to pursue it professionally, but some want to be doctors, and that's okay too. The art never has to go away, I tell them. You make a decision for yourself. Put it away for now, but it's there when you want it.
Right. Well, and that's our responsibility as arts educators, right? Is to develop that lifelong love of the arts.
But they feel like they have to choose, which is, I just don't think so. And that's what I love about community theater is I do shows with doctors and lawyers and cashiers, and we're just a family, and I love it. And networking and knowing people, building those relationships, that's so important. And I tell the kids that. Get to know people. Don't stop them before you can build a relationship with them. Because sometimes theater can be like, oh, you can do that? Well, I can do this. And I don't know, sometimes that can be a little frustrating. Like, we're all artists, and I think that's cool. And that's what I love about Fringe is just all these different styles. And it doesn't feel like anyone's trying to up or grandstand. It's like, hey, that's cool. Let me show you. I really love that. That's what I promote. That's my platform for my kids.
That's exciting. That I have found that in the Fringe community. I'm sure in the DFW area, in the professional theater, sometimes like ego can be such a big thing in the theater. And I just don't find that in Fringe very often. Very rarely, actually, because it's such a difficult thing, and you have to put so much time and energy and effort into it and not really reap a lot of financial benefits for most people. And so you do it because you love it.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
There was this girl in Vancouver. I was there a couple years ago, and she had come to the Fringe and was like, oh, people can just do a show. And she was like, she just threw her name in the hat the next year. She didn't really have any training or anything. And like, she did a show, and it was fine. It was fine. But I talked to her afterwards and learned that about her. And I was so blown away. I was like, you did a thing. Where else do you get to do that? She wrote a whole play. I went and performed it. It wasn't terrible.
I love it. And then you ask yourself, what's like the butterfly effect from that? Like there's so much confidence in everything that could come from that. Even if she never does another show again, I think just that confidence and how she puts herself in different situations is different now, if that makes sense. And that's what I do with the babies. I kind of nudge them, because even at a performing arts school, you'll get the ones that are green, have never done a show, or super introverted, so you ease them into it. And then, a few months, and some of them even maybe a couple of years later, you're like, where did you come from? And I love that. That's my favorite part too.
Yeah, because it's kind of like working with a company there if you've got them from 6th through 12th grade. Does it feel like that?
Oh yeah, just the loyalty. They're loyal to me, and I hope I return that. And individuality, encouraging kids to be themselves is so important to me. I felt like in my childhood that was a struggle. So when I see my kids trying to do that, I want to be a support for them. And my school is a safe place where kids, I always say, can just kind of breathe, because they're not always looking for that next part or this or that. They just want a space where they can exist, where maybe in a traditional school setting, they may not have that.
That is so beautiful and really so needed right now. But I do have a question. How do you all create an environment, like you said, to allow kids to just be and create? And I'm sure there is a level of competitiveness, but to kind of keep that ego, that desire to get ahead of one another out of the daily function of it and really focusing on the art. It sounds like you've been able to do that to some level. What do you think the keys to that is?
I feel like it's opportunities, and I try to find them, and it's not always shows. Like I'll find special events, community service, even be very strategic and intentional with the projects that I do in my class, just so that every kid, especially in middle school, can kind of find their place, find their niche, and be like, oh, I didn't know I like that. And then kind of encourage them to take care of that and, watch it grow. They do get competitive. And I tell them that's okay, because if you intend to pursue it, that's what it's going to be like. But that doesn't mean that you can't support each other. I teach them that no is okay. There's a lot that goes into casting or being picked for a position, whether it's a tech position, and that's not the end. And I try to tell them that please don't let me be the end all to your dreams and stuff. I am one person. Like, you have to believe in your product. You have to know why something is good. I always say I don't like false confidence, and what I mean by that is if someone performs and you're watching and you're saying, oh, that's just the best thing ever, are you doing them a service by saying that? And do you understand why you're saying it's the best thing ever? And it doesn't mean you have to tear them down. You can pick the highlights and say, that was great, but some sort of growth mindset. And that just seems to really work with them.
That's really exciting to hear. Like, just your philosophy there. It's really, really encouraging. It sounds like a very kind of healthy, holistic way to teach kids and nurture them. So now I was very excited to learn before we got on air that, sad, you said your school doesn't do one act play. And so you're always looking for other opportunities, and Fringe kind of became one of those opportunities. So last year you all took the zombies from Webster Street to the Fort Worth Fringe. Tell me about this show. I know nothing about it. I want to know, what's the show about and how did that Fringe experience go?
Again, originally it was a piece I had written for competition that I liked. And I always start off the year asking my kids, what kind of storyteller are you? And I feel that I'm a creator. I kind of have my hand in everything, but creators, part of that is playwriting, creating these worlds, and that's the kind of storyteller I am. There's a seed somewhere, and I love zombies, so I was a big fan of The Walking Dead, and that's kind of like an element in the show. But I also took struggling with friends and family who struggle with drug addiction, and then they just kind of ended up meshing together. So the character in the beginning is a fan of The Walking Dead and compares her brother's meth addiction to becoming this zombie, and the fact that the neighborhood is seeing a rise in young people becoming addicted to meth, and just experiencing how he's kind of transforming physically and all the things. And she has to ask herself, can she survive the end of the world in a zombie apocalypse? But in this case, with her brother's addiction and living in this town, and she comes to a resolution that she can, but there's a cost at the end. And you ask yourself, is she too far gone to not be on the defense? I like Fringe also because I feel like my brain works a little bit out of the box, and I love a good symbolism. And the scene where the brother finally becomes addicted, he sinks into the couch, and then when he comes up from behind it, then he's completely transitioned into the zombie. And I just love it. And I invited the kids. It was middle of summer. And I reached out. I said, I know you guys are enjoying your summer, but who wants to do a show? And yeah, just got all these responses. And so they came up to school in July, and we started prepping, took it to Fringe, and then performed it at school. That drive they have, and they're always down to do a little something.
Do they get to work on a lot of original work very often, or was this something new for them to work on something that you had written?
I always like to include a couple of original pieces in my season and workshop with them. And especially as I get to know my kids, I kind of like to reflect who they are. And I want them to see themselves in the work that we're doing. And so, yeah, I would say regularly. And then this year I'm excited because I'm actually going to teach a playwriting class. So I'm definitely going to start generating some work from those kiddos. It's been fun. I've seen the spark in some. They're like, hey, I'm writing this piece. Do you think we could perform it? And I'm down. I have a great little space that they can kind of workshop their pieces, and we'll do some performances and stuff. But that storyteller, I think whether you're an actor, a director, a designer, you just have to want to be a storyteller. So I love to feed that and see them do that.
That's really exciting to instill that love of new work into your students as they're kind of growing as artists, because as we get into the professional world, it's so difficult to mount new work and for theaters to take a chance on new work because it's so hard to sell tickets. And so you've got kids that are working on new work, writing their own work, like at the middle school and high school level, which is insane, and getting an understanding of what that is. And as they get older, they might be more willing to take chances on that and to go to a thing like a Fringe where it's almost all new work. And so I applaud you for doing that. That's very, very cool. And how did the kids respond to the Fringe? Like, what did they think about it?
We are performing arts school, but I would say our space isn't a traditional, it used to be an old ninth grade center. So what I mean by that is just we're always having to perform in different spaces and kind of pivot. So they're used to kind of that, all right, we got to do this, and make it happen. So I think they love it. But we do a lot of competitions to where you're kind of trying to meet that deadline and the clock is ticking. But I think also the idea that it was a new work that no one has really done. And it was something that we don't traditionally do in our lineup, in our season. So they were all into it.
That's very cool. I guess the second kind of educator that I've had on that's had like taking students to Fringe, there's a gal out in Rochester, but she's in the college level. And she has a class that's like on the college level, it's just a Fringe class. And I was like, that's insane. I was like jumping out of my skin. I was so excited. And so this is like on that level of like, dang, you're like doing the thing with like littles. And that just really gets me going. It's exciting. So,
and I think the Fringe kind of gives them, because they're so in tune for the most part with like who they are and kind of seeing what kind of artists and they can see that they can showcase it. That that it doesn't go to waste. That there is a way for them to share it, because we have 7 strands, and one strand is art, and I love seeing their pieces and just how their minds work. And I think for theater students to see, like, my mind creates it this way, and I can actually share it with people. And like Fringe lets them see people doing that and lets them know, hey, all right, I can do that. Yeah, let's get it.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, let's talk about your show that you're doing this year. Letter of Release is something that you've written, and your first solo show is what you said kind of there at the Fringe. Tell me a little bit about it. Why did you write it?
I feel like a lot of pieces for me go back to childhood and maybe unresolved traumas. And whether I'm writing a drama or really even something whimsical, you always see kind of those traumas pop up. They kind of manifest in different ways. And one character can be several pieces of different people that I've interacted with. Letter of Release really initially started because I was writing my father who's in prison. And so we would exchange letters, and it really became a need on my part for some resolution, because that wasn't a relationship that I grew up having. There was just enough to know that he was out there and just enough to kind of feel and want that relationship. And so now he was in one spot, if that makes sense. And so, I wrote him, asked some questions that I needed answered. And then it really just kind of stopped. So it was really about wanting to know. And then I'm so connected to my grandmother and my grandmother figures in my life who have always rooted for me in all kinds of ways. So she pops up in this as well. She's the one that kind of helps bridge that gap between father and son. She sees the bigger picture. You know, obviously the dad is her baby and there are connections for themselves. But I think to her grandson, she sees what he needs and she encourages him to reach out for healing, really for both of them. You know, I'll wake up at 3 a.m. and I'll be like, that's interesting. Why do I keep thinking about that? And then I'll write down an idea and then it just kind of starts spinning and slowly I start connecting things and next thing I know, I have a piece.
That's beautiful. So this is not fully autobiographical, it sounds like. Is it just kind of based on your life or is it more autobiographical?
There's a lot of me in it without it being like directly about me. A lot of it is to honor my grandmother or those grandmother figures. That's always important to me because I think I end up feeling I didn't tend those relationships as much as they deserved. And so there's regret with that. And so sometimes to honor those things, I include those characters and those moments. And sometimes it's just a need to kind of write stuff out, whether it's directly about me. I wrote a comedy one time about this group of women at a chili cook-off, and a theater let me produce it. But look, you know, as I analyze it, really all those women are pieces of my mother, without it being about her, with those characteristics. So it's not exactly about.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I feel like so much of it, many of us as writers, like we draw upon our experiences, but it's good to know that it's like not loosely based on you've taken inspiration, but it's a story, its own story in and of itself, it sounds like. So very cool. Okay. So you said you wanted to do this to challenge yourself. Why did you want to do that? And what kind of challenge is it bringing?
I find the older I get, the more comfortable I am with being vulnerable. And the thing I like about kind of humanity is to get in the muck. There's so much muck. And I even encourage the kids, don't be afraid to get in that. Because I feel like you can harvest like all these feelings and experiences. And it is therapeutic, but it just gives you this warehouse of feelings and places that you can pull from. I love community theater. I'd say that's regularly what I do. I think, and I get it, that community has to serve a certain audience to operate. They are limited on the type of shows they can do. This one is a little out there in the sense that it wouldn't be a traditional show on a community theater lineup. I can kind of experiment with places that I go with it that I don't get to really regularly. You know, I do have a family, and so I limit myself on how many shows and projects I can work on so I can be present, you know, in their lives and stuff. And this was also a cool opportunity to do it in kind of a shorter amount of time before the kiddos go back to school. And I am so big on giving opportunities to my students. And I don't know, I just thought maybe I should give one to myself. I think it's good for them to kind of see me putting what I tell them to, you know, put it to work. There is a little discomfort dipping into that and exploring that relationship. The main character's name is Jake, and for Jake to explore that relationship with his grandmother and with his dad, there's a handful of people that maybe I chat and let in on that, but really as a whole, I don't really talk about that. I don't know if that makes sense, but
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And then do you have a team of folks helping you with it, or have you just you're like solo, that's it, doing it myself? Or like, do you have a director? Do you have designers? What's your team like?
I do love to design. It's not that I'm a control freak. I've learned to ask for help because I am the worst about asking for help, but because I enjoy being in the zone. And I enjoy being with the material and imagining what that world looks like and what is he wearing and how do these things pop up and mean so much more than what you're seeing. I do like to have a hand on that. So no, when they ask who your crew was, I said, well, it's a party of one, but that's okay because I've done projects to where I have had a crew and support, and I don't know, it's a solo flight that I was really into doing for myself, and even my family I haven't shared. I don't let them watch me rehearse it or anything, just so I can be kind of in it and just not self-conscious or aware of anybody else, and just experiment with how my body's reacting to what I'm doing. And I don't know, it just seems super private right now until I decide to release it.
Oh, that's beautiful. And is this something that your kids, I know you've got some young ones at home, will they be able to see it? Is it age appropriate? Like my kids have not seen my show, not age appropriate. So will they get to, or?
I would say not this one. I think I have an adult daughter, and I think it would be really good for her to look at, definitely from the artistry. But like I said, there are elements of kind of maybe where I'm coming from as a person and a father that, I don't know, might strengthen our relationship, to because I haven't shared a lot of what I've witnessed and traumas like that with her, because I tend to hold off on that. I used to find emotions very difficult to share, especially with stuff like that. But again, the older I get, I want to do that. I want to connect, and to do that, I have to share it. And kind of this is the best way I know how. But yeah, so she can see it. The babies maybe not.
I feel like that's spoken like an artist. Like sometimes we don't know how to say what we need to say other than through a play, or if you're a visual artist, through that, or a musician or a song. That's just how we express what we need to express. I mean, I've got a little play ruminating because I'm so mad about what's happening in Texas, and I don't know how to articulate it in conversations. But you know what? I probably could write a play about it.
Yeah, maybe a moment, yeah, or something like that. And like I said, it usually happens around 3 a.m. I'll grab my phone. I'm like, I don't know what this is, but hey.
It's come to me. The art has come. I've got to get it out.
Yeah. I mean, even the school show I'm working on right now, it initially thought, what would happen if the story was told on rooftops? Like if you had nothing left but the roof of a house. And so that's how it kind of manifests at 3 a.m. I'm like, what is that about? And then I try to figure out. And then I've always been spiritual, religious, but I have found my place in the church and kind of figuring out what my faith looks like and not compare it to other people. And then the layers started, I'm like, that's what the show is.
Very cool. I love that. Well, I can't wait to see your show and get a little peek there into your life as well. All right. So we're coming to the end of our program here, and I'm going to ask you the question that I love to ask all of my guests, which is, what has been your most interesting or awkward fringe interaction? Or it can be from teaching, anything like little theater anecdote you'd like to share with us to end our time together.
I guess an endearing story would be when I love to do an awards banquet at the end of the year, and a young man had came up and, he received this award for a small little supporting part that he played, and he was so touched by it. And he said, well, up until now, all I'd ever played was the camel. And for me, that journey is so important. It's important for the kids. It's important for myself. I think that's my favorite part, to see those kids kind of shine. Like I've had a young lady that was in the chorus of Lion King, and she was a zebra, and then she ended up being Annie, and all those kind of things. I love a moment like that, and I see that a lot with the kids, and it just means a lot.
I love that. Well, and it means a lot to that person as well. Like that's something that student's going to carry with them into adulthood and remember back, to the time when somebody gave them an opportunity. So thanks for sharing that. That's awesome. That's what Fringe is all about, right?
Yeah. And I think with Fringe, last Fringe was very hard because I had my dog, his name was Jake, and he passed away during Fringe. And it was very heartbreaking. And I think the love that the kiddos had, because we had a performance that day and it was so difficult, but just the love they had for me, I only hope that I can return that to them. But just that unit and pushing through and supporting each other. That would be another one.
Well, and I love that. I feel like you're like, I hope I'm passing that on. I've just spent a few minutes with you, and I'm like, absolutely, definitely you are doing that. And it's very evident in the love that you have for the art form, and more importantly, the love that you have for each individual student just really shines out of you. So they're getting that. All right. Well, Kevin, thank you so much for joining me today on What the Fringe. It's been such a delight to talk to you.
You too. I look forward to seeing seeing you and watching you. So it's going to be fun.
That's going to be good. Well, letter of release is going to be at the Fort Worth Fringe Festival, and it is also available to purchase through JD Publishing. So you can go check that out and use it there with some of your students if folks are teaching in the high school, or as a professional actor, great monologues and things like that. And then Kevin is also part of the Grand Prairie Fine Arts Academy, which is a high-performing school in both academics and the arts, and they have auditions that are open to all students. I'm going to link in the show notes there to the Fine Arts Academy and also to the letter of release. What the Fringe is produced and hosted by me, Lauren Hance. This episode was edited by Ben Ellis of Renowned Media, and those sweet tunes you hear are provided by Paul Snyder of Orchestra of Sound, and our logo was designed by Ruby Arnold of Ruby Makes Things. What the Fringe can be found on your favorite podcast platforms and now on YouTube, so be sure to hit that subscribe button so you can stay in the know when new episodes release. And keep up with What the Fringe on Instagram at whatthefringe_productions, and find us online at whatthefringeproductions.com.
Reviews are great, but, let's be honest, it's just one person's opinion. Whether it's a great review or a bad review, learn to let it go and imagine your reviewer saying,
Please don't let me be the end all to your dreams and stuff.